Hello, everyone. First time speaking with microphone. It's okay from level of voice, yes? Perfect. So I'm Alexander, I'm from Walker, and I want to tell you something about how to set up future-proof event tracking fast. And starting with a disappointment, it's not going to be fast. It's just clickbaiting to welcome everyone. And I think having developers in here, having hopefully product managers as well, interested in this topic is quite rare, but now that I'm seeing you, I'm pretty glad that you made it. And maybe you have the experience that setting up tracking is frustrating, it's error-prone, it's not that much fun usually, but our goal is to make this fun, to make this reliable, to make this better, and this is what it's all about. And since this is Code Talks, I will finish my presentation here and do the most stupid idea, going to live coding, to give you some hands-on advices and hopefully helping me to, if I'm going to misspell something, whatever. So look first to the right. You'll see everything in the presentation. It's public, available on GitHub. You can go to Walker/talks and you will find the whole transcript, the whole presentation, and all the scripts over there, and feel free to contribute or share it later on. This is something we want to develop together. So I'm going to use a new presentation slide format. And data lifecycle usually starts with, we want to use data for better recommendation, better experience, to build better products. And we need to analyze them. We need for the reports, we need to store them somewhere and all these things. And there's one tool, another tool, and we're always coming from point 7, from the first start, the idea of using a tool. But animation, we should start by planning, with planning. We should start with a plan, what's going to be measured when and why and where. Not just, oh, we need this tool for better marketing analytics, or we need that tool for whatever. We need the same events over and over again. We need to bring people together to have a common understanding. And the most interactive part, don't spoiler, if there's someone having heard of a measurement plan, is using it and is actively maintaining a measurement plan. Because I'm still looking for those people. They're quite rare and not here, but hopefully this one will change. Because this is something we want to recommend, and that's what we're doing. And it's something, it's one step towards the goal of achieving data ownership, which will be, in our opinion, the most important thing. Achieving data ownership means not being not to rely on some third-party vendors, but to have the competence in your company, in your company, that's it. And becoming data-driven is the ultimate goal. The step is data ownership. And what a measurement plan creates, it's transparency. What's being measured and when, and where, and why. And the communication between the teams. Okay, we have a product ad event, and this one's triggered when someone adds a product. Seems like a no-brainer, but what is it used for? What information do we have together in there? So it kind of assures data quality, since we know which data is available in which format, when and where. Sounds like a good idea. And it's the foundation to scale your analytics, to not just have 5 implementations of a product ad event for 5 different tools or vendors, but one implementation sharing everything. But what we need is the start together with people coming together from product development, from marketeers, from engineers, to create this common understanding. So we came up with a quite nerdy idea. Why don't just think of data collection as code? Why don't we just have a TypeScript definition or something engineers that are not able to code, or don't want to code, or don't have the time to code, or marketeers that should be able to read this JSON file. Why can't we just document everything with all the tools we have in a very pragmatic way? Using pull requests if we want to add something, using TypeScript to check if everything's working. So the common understanding will be a source, like for web, for our homepage. So we're going to see, I'm going to go over here, define the goals. what are we going to measure on our webpage, lporker.com? What's the purpose of our website? We want to educate you, and we want to convert you. It's quite easy. Other shops will have order-complete events, or sell making revenue, or want to inspire you with some good stuff, or want to sell tickets for events like this one. And we have entities, like in our case, on our web page, we have the page. Everyone knows the page view. It's like an action, but the page. We also have something like an article. We've started a blog, and there's this article with a title, author, and reading times, whatever. And there's some other destinations. So starting with the page, we came up with the idea, describing everything. What is it? And what does it consist of? Okay, we have the page path. I'm going quite quickly over this one, but you will find it later on in the repo. And if something's unclear, just raise your hands, whatever. But having a page view event is the most common thing. But having a page read event is something we want to track the conversion of each site. And what we're going to do is dig deeper into our articles, having the blog. Who's seeing an article, like typical impression event, who's clicking it, who's viewing it, and who actually read the whole article. This is something we define as a journey. A journey for someone we want to educate. And for example, if there's a view, we know what's being measured. And this data is something we're going to map to other destinations, like our data warehouse, and also, for example, the data read event to retarget someone who's interested in a special category. Since we know and described everything in one file, we know which event will get to which destination through mapping. So this is something, the plan we're going to use, and it's something that's never finished. It's a continuous process, and it's something we keep developing over and over again. And this is the foundation for something we want to introduce, calling the implementation layer. Most people think of, yeah, there's a Google Tag Manager. Why do we need this? But no one cares about what's triggering the pushes. How is data getting into the Google Tag Manager at all? It's something. It's the black box. It's the people in here, the black box. No one knows what they're actually doing. It just takes time, and they don't know why I should do this. And then there's another vendor, and we have to do it again. And the implementation layer is something underlying. It's not something just for one vendor, but it's vendor agnostic. It's something that should be the central source of truth. Yet we're creating kind of a bottleneck in here, which sounds like a stupid idea, but once we're having this one as part of our whole development cycle, for example, you can put in your CI/CD pipelines or whatever. We're having the documentations, we're having the standard everyone can contribute to, since we all know how to do a pull request. And we have something that's, yeah, I told you about the documentation. So this is the whole file with everything inside. And this is something we now can use to create an implementation. Because having, for example, this is our website, and we're having the blog, and I'm going to have the page view event, but now I want an implementation for this to trigger all those events. I need some more information. Sorry, that was kind of too early. It's the event that's having all necessary properties or information inside, speaking about the context. It's not just a page view or article view. It's an article view through a specialist or special position. I didn't update this one, but what does it trigger? The load event, we have the read. Oh, there's a mistake by. I looked it over and again, but since you're on stage here, you'll see the things. Having a whole event with everything inside, everything ready to use for each destination, we can use this data now to distribute it. And there's a recommendation. I recently recorded a podcast episode together with Timo Dechau from Meet the Analytics Stack, where we are discussing the idea of having a whole event with some more context about the user, about the consent state, about the configuration life on a website. And now we're going to use this information. But how do we create those events with all necessary information. Therefore, we open sourced the Walker.js, which is something like a descriptive markup language you can place directly on your HTML. No one is going to remove the class, a class attribute telling this is product detail, since we know the format will break. CSS won't render, and that's a stupid idea. But what if we place another attribute telling this is for tracking, for analytics? It's not somewhere in a JavaScript library, somewhere mangled, loaded from third-party tools. It's nothing that's coming just from a front end. There's no coordination effort at all. Once you design your components using atomic design, you can say, this is our call to action event, and I want to measure interaction on this. If I'm having a button, I can also implement the click actions. So we're having this little standard just by setting HTML attributes. You can set the scope, you can set the properties, you can set the actions to trigger everything. And we'll create the event for you. Or the Walker.js is open source. You can use it, you can extend it, you can feel free to contribute or ask questions about this one. And the context triggers the race conditions, the constant states that will be there for you to in a documentation. It's something that's going to scale your whole setup, because it's easy. And I prepared my live typings. So setting attributes on a website, telling, okay, this div container is an article now. And once I'm going to have this one visible, I'm going to trigger the impression event. But from which, see, it's not working yet. We're having some blog posts, nothing's going to be triggered. But once I'm setting this article, we're having a title of this one. And as soon as I'm clicking on something, I want it to be clicked. So implementing tracking with just on a link, click action is something we now see, moment of truth, where we got those impression events from the article. Once I'm clicking on, for example, an event, we're having the article click. Now we want to go further and see the article views, which is something following the same structure. This one is just very fast to see. Maybe you can follow if I stop talking while doing this. Setting attributes, setting, okay, the same article, loading a page, triggering a view event, setting properties by self-describing standard we've designed before. And as soon as we reach the end of, let's do this one. As soon as we reach the end of an article, we'll have the article read event triggered. So back on our page, once we're here, we're going to see a page view and also the article view. Going to read it over and over again. Oh, we got other events in here. Sorry, this is maybe better visible. Is it visible for you? Yes. Okay. We now understand that having a whole article just by setting a few HTML attributes, not for the page view, but the article view, that there was on this blog page type, after 7 seconds, quite fast reading, we've read the article. And this event could be spread to some other destinations as well. For example, the data layer now, just by setting the attributes, we're having the same ones. Since, why? The measurement plan is telling us. The measurement plan is having destinations inside that it's going to be sent through our data lake with same mapping. And this is something quite common we use for many companies and sites to declare that every entity and every action needs statistical consent for our data lake. And maybe there's a mapping that we want to rewrite an autocomplete event to a purchase for the pixel ID from Facebook. Maybe we want to map the autocomplete event to a purchase event on Google Ads or Google Analytics and the I can continue with all this information, and we always know which properties are accessible through our definitions, having an article, having everything inside, except accessing all these properties, and we can map those things. And this is something that should speed up your implementation and hopefully helps you to set up everything. But there's one more thing. I just need to know how much time's left. Can someone please tell me? Okay. When did I start? I'm over time, yeah? Testing everything, having everything set up in your HTML is something quite common. You can now use those tag definitions, just look it up later. I'm looking forward for tasks to see once, scrolling inside, or clicking an article. We can use those definitions to trigger events, article click, yes, and see what's going to be measured when. We use our query selectors based on the language. We see the tracking implemented inside, and we know what to expect. So we can also see implementations on a web page. What's going to be measured? We're having the call to actions, we're having article load and view, we're having the information about this one. It's nothing any longer that is hidden in some files and hidden in some messages, but written on a web page. And this could be the foundation for tracking setups to make them more open, since we have the responsibility for GDPR compliances, what's being measured in for which purpose and where and when. We can now see exactly, and we can now document it and share this one through a company just by setting up our own common definition, extending it by using TypeScript or whatever, and all based on just a configuration file. We're going to build a data collection as a service, or headless tag management, whatever you call it. But that's our idea, and I'm really happy if you share some thoughts or have some questions, and I hope it's okay with the time now. Yeah, thanks so much.